So, Brian, super happy to see you. We've known each other for a very long time. You are quite a discreet person. We don't see you around that much. You work in the shadows, don't you?
So because my priority in the past hasn't been to explode my business, it's just been to make an income and have a good time and enjoy what I'm doing. I haven't worried much about like my presence online because, as you know, as Asana Solutions partners, there's enough business that when they have new leads come in and they say, "Brian, do you want a new one?" And I say, "Yes, I've got enough work," right? But that's kind of changing now. But yeah, in the past, like I haven't updated my site in like a couple of years. Like I've before 3 weeks ago, I made like one LinkedIn post a year. So like I've just been operating the background because I just do what I like and clients come. So
I think it's not the case for every partner. I think some of them struggle, but because you do create some content and you have the tools you're working on, I think it does help bring some leads to you. Today, I want to talk about your journey, who you are, why you chose Asana, what would have happened if you never encountered Asana. I want to
yeah,
talk about your move from consulting to product because you are starting to create products. I want to talk about the actual product you're creating and how to sell something on top of something people already pay for, because this is not
sure.
always easy.
Yeah,
And at the end, you're going to give us your favorite productivity trick, if that's okay.
sure, of course.
So because it's a coffee thing, it's the Asana coffee with someone. I do have my mug around here. It's my last coffee of the yeah, nice. So are you a coffee guy or
I'm more of like a mint tea. I love you're gonna laugh at this, but I love hot milk. Um, so yeah, mint tea and hot milk are kind of my warm drinks of choice.
because my last guest, Larry, actually grew his own coffee
Yeah, I
bean.
was seeing your
Can you
video.
top
I was
that
like,
or
that's the next level. No, I don't actually grow any of my own food or drinks.
not yet anyway? So can you tell us what you do and can you tell us when did you actually meet Asana?
Yeah, so the first 8 or 10 years of my career, I was primarily in school software. And it was a great experience, and I love that industry. But I had one experience that kind of completely changed the trajectory of my career. So we were managing a lot of different things at the same time. I was working for a company in the Northeast, and it was kind of getting overwhelming trying to figure out what's on my plate, what are on my team members' plates, the classic question, who is doing what by when? And
But
at the
some people
time,
are okay with this. They for years they just don't do anything about this. So what
yeah.
was different in your case?
Well, I don't know. I've always been a person where like I enjoy making continual updates to the way I'm doing things. I like to look at inefficiencies. My whole life, I've enjoyed looking at inefficiencies and saying, how do I change that? How do I do it better? And after a few months of feeling like I just didn't have a handle on again who was doing what by when, including myself, I just thought I can't live in this mayhem every day. So I implemented another nameless tool that begins with the letter T. Um,
If you're
and
talking about Trello, that's okay because they basically disappeared from the face of the earth. We
Yeah,
can say
okay.
their name.
Well, I implemented Trello and for my own stuff, and then started sharing that with some coworkers just so that people could see what to expect. And it was a huge help. I didn't realize at the time how much Trello doesn't scale well. But at the time, I was only managing primarily my work, a few things I was expecting from others. And the massive improvement it made from just a small change like that, I thought, wow, like that completely changed how I approach my work. So much so that like I started sleeping better. Like no joke, I had
Like
sleeping
literally, okay.
I implemented Trello and I started sleeping better because my brain could let go of trying to be the manager of everything. Anyway, after we were done with that, and I kind of got the itch to start a new phase of life. There were a lot of changes happening in my life, and I thought, you know what? I had a lot of fun implementing Trello. I want to look into that industry and see if that's something I'd like to do. And I first used Asana in 2011, like right when they came out. I love trying new tools, but at the time it did not look great and it didn't work super great. Trello was like flashy and new as well at the time.
Even
So
back
I hadn't
then,
tried Trello
Trello
since
looked good.
What do you say?
Even back then, Trello looked good because
Oh
I
yeah,
guess
Trello, the
like
card
15 years
interface.
ago, yeah, everything doesn't look that good, but it did. Okay.
Yeah, the card interface at the time, compared to what else was available, was super slick. And so that's what drew me to Trello. Even though I had an account, I still have my original welcome email from Asana. It's super fun to see that. But I investigated the industry and tried out all the other tools for like 6 or 8 months, just experimenting with which tools I like the most and what the industry looks like. And I actually did a couple implementations for Monday and ClickUp and realized I don't think they weren't ready for like both those implementations. We had client challenges that came up that we just couldn't address because Monday and ClickUp weren't ready to handle those. And then I did Asana, and I was like, wow, these guys have a handle on the industry. They're leaps and bounds ahead. And so I started just exclusively focusing on Asana, and I had so much fun. I just dropped everything else I was doing. I thought I'm going all in, and that's right when they launched their public consulting program.
Have you tried ClickUp and Monday recently?
Yeah, so I try and keep an eye on the industry. They've both made a huge amount of progress. I'm not one to speak ill of other tools, but I will say that they're still not at the point where like it's not worth it to me to take focus away from Asana. But they each have their strong points. ClickUp does a lot. In some
Yeah.
cases, I think it does a little bit too much because it kind of steps out there before maybe it's ready on some things. But great tool. And people aren't, you always have to work with workarounds on different tools, right? And then Monday has really kind of done a good job reaching out and making it a very flexible tool. But in terms of ease of use, I've consistently found that people pick up Asana much easier than just about any other tool.
I'm actually pretty convinced that if any one of us decided to go with a different tool, we would still be pretty super efficient and productive anyway.
Oh yeah, they're both
So,
great tools. Those,
yeah.
those other tools, like there's a reason why they command a huge. So I watch the website rankings of each tool each month to kind of see how the tools are growing and shrinking. And so they've both become fairly competitive with Asana. Still, Asana is in the lead by a few hundred rankings. I think Asana is at like 1,100 something in terms of the website ranking, the global ranking.
Okay.
And I want to say Monday is at like 1,400, ClickUp's at 1,540. So they're both fairly close to Asana, but Asana's been in the lead for as long as I've been tracking the industry.
Okay, pretty cool. Yeah, if we could just go back to the initial team you were part of where you did
Yeah.
not have any tool. So you basically became that guy, the organized guy that everybody turns to when they have trouble. Did you help the rest of the team get Trello as well?
I tried to encourage them to. I think they checked my work board occasionally. But the challenge I found at the time was they were, growing up, my dad actually was one of the executives at a paper planner company. So we were very taught frequently on how to plan and how to plan forward and how to manage our work. And one of the quotes that I learned from him that I felt like was really powerful and it's really helpful to keep in mind. They did a big study to figure out which is the best planning system, and the best
Okay.
planning system, their conclusion was, is the one that works. And so at the time when I implemented Trello, I noticed that, I had a team member who was really good at her spreadsheets and kind of wanted to maintain work that way, right? I had somebody that I worked with that loved her paper planner and a person that loved his sticky notes. And so I didn't feel like I had I guess the momentum or the confidence to be able to say, you must also jump in and use this with me, or the authority. But some of the tasks that we were working on together, I would put in there, and I never really got full buy-in from everyone. But the change for me was even just one person was huge, and so it was worth it for me to completely move my entire life, by the way, my personal life as well, into Trello. So
Yeah, yeah. In my previous company, it was a dev company. We had Jira, and I was actually copying everything into Asana, organizing Asana, and then updating Jira so that the rest of the team
uh-huh.
sees what I'm doing.
Because
Because
you
Asana
preferred
was
Asana.
just, yeah, it was better and had more features, and I had other stuff in there, including personal stuff. So you've worked a lot on improving your habits and your daily
Yeah.
routines. Do you still do that very often? Do you improve your Asana all the time?
Yeah, so I actually when I take appointments with clients, I give them my booking link and they can pick any time on my calendar, but I have Fridays blocked off. because Fridays and then Saturday mornings I work on process. So I work on it every week. So Fridays are still available by request, but I tell clients, hey, otherwise you're welcome to pick any time Monday to Thursday, and that gives me time every single week to look at, okay, what's working, what's not, what's taking me a lot of extra time that I can automate, where can I build other templates in Asana. And it's so fun because the next time you do the thing after you've built a template or an automation and it's just a single button instead of a
Yeah.
bunch of work, you're just like, I did that. Like that's a new superpower, a new magic trick I can do by pushing this one button. I launched this whole process. So yeah, it's been a weekly thing for me for years, and it's a lot of fun.
So you're working on the business on Friday instead of in the business, which is really
Yes.
hard to do. Okay, cool.
Friday and Saturday mornings are my on the business time.
Yeah, we kind of do that on Wednesdays. We block off calendars and try to work on everything we haven't had time to work on. But it's really hard, especially when you have your My Task view looking at you in the eyes with all that stuff you
Yeah.
have to do and just look away and do something else. That's super
Yeah,
hard.
exactly.
Um,
Again, I know that you're really good at this. You and I had a conversation a couple of years ago when we were talking about outside projects, and I remember asking you because I was amazed by how much you were getting done, and I was like, "Holy cow! What's your superpower? How do you do this?" And then we were already both Asana consultants, and you were like, "My superpower is Asana, of course." And it made me think, like, wow, we're both all in on Asana. How are you getting so much more done than I could imagine getting done? And it gave me a new challenge to like, okay, what would Bastin do? What would Bastin do? So
so
it made me think through my process much more thoroughly.
did you change anything specific after that discussion? How different is your personal organization today compared to a couple of years ago? What did you
Well,
change?
I mean, this sounds silly, but it's actually a significant change. So you taught me one of the things you taught me that actually has had a significant impact on my work is the functional use of emojis. It's silly to say that, but like
True. Yeah.
when you use emojis for search purposes, for work categorization, in Asana, we're looking at text all day, every day. So if we can give our brains an image that means something instead of having to read it, I know that every time I see a hammer, that's the in progress section, right? So I don't have to read in progress. My brain sees the hammer and I know I'm on the in progress section. So that's one of the most significant things that I use them very deliberately in search and work organization. And then I think the second thing is, we collaborated on one of your books a couple years ago, and it really kind of expanded the way I thought about Asana when I saw that you were using Asana to plan your book outline and the tasks associated with it, and the description for the content layout, and it went from thinking about Asana for tasks and documentation to everything. So
Yeah,
thank
and I
you.
think, yeah, my pleasure. I think if you go back to the book, I think one of the good thing I did was to look at the book as a big problem you have to divide and conquer. So basically, a book is 30 chapters. You cut it down into 30 chapters, and then you decide you want to write 2 chapters a week, one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and then suddenly you have your entire plan in front of you, and then it's easy to just
Yeah,
work
exactly.
step by step, like baby steps and moving forward this way.
And Bastin, I just have to comment for anybody who's watching this and considering using Asana. One of the things that I love and that I've seen you do is it when you use deliberately a good work management tool like Asana, it makes anything possible because there's that famous quote, how do you eat an elephant? I'm all for protecting animals, but this is a quote. Okay. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you move a mountain? One spoonful at a time. If you can break anything complicated down into phases, milestones, and steps, anything is doable. And you take the most complicated, overwhelming, huge deliverable and break it down in Asana, and suddenly it feels like, oh, I may not know how to do the whole thing, but look, I can do that step and that step and that step. And suddenly everything becomes manageable and it all becomes mappable to your workday. So I just get excited because it makes it feel like you can do anything.
Exactly. And I recorded a video actually today about this. We have a project called Move the Needle in Asana. That project only contains recurring tasks. And one example I give is if you want to shoot, I don't know, 50 YouTube videos, one way would be to create 50 tasks and assign yourself on those 50 tasks, but then suddenly you have that massive amount of tasks coming to your My Task view.
Yeah.
So what I do is I don't assign myself on anything. They go into one project and I have one task that says record one video. That's a recurring task every 2 days. And then I just go and chip away and record one and another one.
It's more manageable.
Yeah. And if you push that task once, it doesn't feel like a bad thing. You just pushed that small task once, but in the end, you make small steps.
Yeah. Yeah. I just realized as we're talking, when I get excited, I often bang my hands on my desk. So there's going to be a lot of background noise of bang, bang, bang. So...
We can't hear that. It's fine. Okay. So can you tell us what you do now? I know that you do consulting. You're also doing some product development. Can you talk about the consulting? Are you by yourself? Do you have a team working with you?
Yeah. So I had a short period last year where I was bringing on a couple team members to consult with me. We did a couple test projects and I wasn't thrilled with the results. So we parted ways and it's been just me for quite a while. In terms of consulting. Product, I have a team that I work with, but consulting, I just, you know this, where you get such a strong belief in the way that you approach Asana that teaching somebody else to have that consistent approach is, and as a consultant, as a team member is different, but as a consultant, helping somebody else build out their Asana workspace or Asana organization, it's really hard to teach that. And I just wasn't ready for the amount of work that it was going to take to evangelize and fully get someone else to adopt my methodology and do implementations the way I do them. Anyway, so it's been back to just me for about a year and a half. And then the rest of the team is all developers.
Yeah, and I think it's for the reason you just mentioned, that's why at iDo, we only hire people that already know Asana. I think it's really hard to teach them basically 10 years of building workflows. It's just really hard. So if they already know Asana, if they struggled at their company, if they were already champions at their company, it's just easier because that's going to tick in their head. They're going to understand the problems that the clients have.
And it's different teaching a client how to use Asana, because their job isn't to envision the entire architecture and all the pieces that go with it, which a consultant has to do. Their job is very job specific, right? Executives have to know how to use their reporting. Team leads have to know how to manage a project and a timeline. Team members have to know to execute on daily tasks, but they don't need to but they don't need to internalize how the whole globe, the whole organization works together. We do. So you have to hire people who get that and have years of experience thinking like that.
Yeah, and you need that vision, and you also need to anticipate what's coming down the road because the workflow that works doesn't always scale well. So this is also something you have to keep in mind. I do have a related question. How do you keep up with the roadmap, the Asana roadmap? I feel like they have been accelerating in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's getting pretty hard to follow. So how do you keep up with everything that's happening?
Number one, it's funny because as they accelerate, when AI was starting to enter our industry, I was a little bit worried, thinking, are they going to take our spot? But the more Asana develops, the more I realize, no, they're absolutely not going to, because the more the tool can do, the less time everybody else has to learn about it. So it's our job to learn all of it and distill down to what they need. So yeah, keeping up on the roadmap has been hard because I noticed the same thing over the last 3 or 4 months. The pace of rolling out new stuff is accelerating quite a bit. So what I typically do is that experimentation with new features falls into my Friday time because I try to just keep myself focused on client work during client days. But I still, every time something new comes out, it becomes a task in my backlog for what, in fact, that's what I should automate next. Right now, I go to the page. I use EasyTasker to log it as a task.
Yeah, you're going to talk about this.
Yeah, but it would be great to automate that so that every time a new release is announced, it would automatically flow into my Asana. That's what I need to do next. But it's been hard to keep up with. There's a lot coming out.
Yeah, what we do is we consolidate all the different information streams that we get, like the forum, the newsletter, the webinars, and we study every single screenshot that Asana releases to see that For example, the Ghent tab, we've seen that a long time ago on a screenshot that was about something completely different. And I think
Yeah.
the design team did not realize they had the Ghent tab right there. And we were like, yeah,
It's
gotcha.
so fun when you get to spot the little
Yeah, yeah,
Easter
yeah,
eggs of things coming out.
exactly. So just to finish up on the consulting, do you work with
Yeah.
specific industries, specific client size, specific geographical location
I
as
mean,
well?
I don't generally like proactively filter them out, but just because I have my experience mostly revolves around companies that are 50 to 200 employees. Sometimes I'll do companies that are, 15, 20 employees, but usually it's about 50 to 200. Most of my clients, I'd say probably 50 or 60% of them are either agencies or service companies. And then I have a few product driven companies. So like commercial B2B products or Amazon products. But yeah, it's I'd say about half, maybe a little more than half are service based companies that are 50 to 200 employees. I don't proactively filter them. It's just, I think because we get our business from the AEs, they know they can see our history of who we worked with. So they know when to hand specific types of people to us. And there have been a couple times where organizations outside of that demographic have come my way, and I have to laugh about this one. So I was consulting an accounting firm, and they all, in every Zoom call, they were all in suits. And I'm kind of an informal guy. I like to make jokes. I like to be really happy and friendly with my clients. And one of them on the training kind of asked me to like tone it down, and like be a little bit more professional. And I just thought, oh man, they chose the wrong guy, because like I can do that, but it's forced. I like to be friendly and informal with people. So
I do have an anecdote as well for you. So we use Zoom as a video platform for work, and very
yeah.
often the client has Teams. And for that specific client, they had Teams, but we use our Zoom. And my colleague was on a Zoom call with the team, the client, and someone joins the call, and you can see them in the waiting room. The name of the guy, so the name he actually wrote down was, "Who the fuck choose Zoom instead of Teams for the call?"
So it's like, should I let him in or not?
Yeah, exactly. And my colleague was like, "Do you know this guy? Because I don't really know who that is. So yeah, let's just let him in and
Yeah.
see who that is." I do want to point of view on something. Often when we talk with the lead, they want to make sure that we worked with other clients in the same industry. And what I try to tell them is that it doesn't really matter, because it all comes down to using the same Asana features. And it usually comes down to having quite the same workflows, whatever industry you work in. Would you agree with this statement?
Yeah, to a certain degree. I think the only caveat that I would add to that is, right now I'm working with a company that does training solutions, and it really helped in our pre-engagement conversations for them to know that, I just finished another implementation with a training solutions company that builds courses and courseware, um, just before theirs, because I knew what an instructional designer was, right? And I knew typically what their work looks like. So I guess, so the caveat I would give is that it helps make the conversation more fluid, but it's also, I wouldn't call it essential by any means, because our job is to take what they need to do and help them map that to Asana. So we don't need to, like, very often I'll say, well, your job is to tell me what you need to do, and then I need to tell you what that needs to look like in Asana. So as I work with clients, I even just give them a worksheet, and I say, for this process, here's the questions I need to understand about how your work works. And a lot of them haven't thought about their work process that deliberately before. But if they can answer the questions on the spreadsheet that are on the little worksheet, then we're fine, and we can map the work into Asana. So as long as they know what their work looks like, we're able to map it just fine. So I
Yeah,
don't I don't see it as a big issue. It's a small benefit, but it's not significant of any size.
definitely. It's really funny to see them around the same table talk about a process that they are supposed to know and share. And very often they don't really know what the others are doing, and they don't do the things exactly the way people expect them to do. Have you had sessions where people actually fall from their chair realizing I don't know how complex something has become over the years before moving to Asana.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one of my favorite experiences is every time we're going to map out a workflow, I give them a choice. I say, hey, you can use this worksheet to help guide your internal discussion, or I can join your discussion and help facilitate it for you.
Oh, nice.
And
I'm
whenever
gonna
they
steal
let
this
me
one.
come in, what?
I'm gonna steal this one from you.
Yeah, it's a cool experience because when and sometimes I go in person, sometimes it's just on Zoom, but when they let me join the discussion, it's amazing how companies have been able to survive on just everybody knowing their own process and not, like you said, not being aware of what happens when it lands in somebody else's workload. There's a good indicator that tells you that discussion is worthwhile. If there's debate or disagreement, it tells you that this is going to be a monumental improvement in their workflow, because debates, disagreements, misunderstandings, they may not have realized it, but those have all caused delays in their previous projects, right? Someone not knowing where a deliverable is going to land when it's done, or how long to expect that a deliverable is going to take from a specific team. And like you said, it's kind of a shocker that they've operated without that knowledge, but that's a good indicator that once Asana is implemented, it's going to work more like a factory and less like guesswork.
Yes, it's a good thing they have a debate. I had never looked at it this way. One time I had the CEO sit down at the meeting, and at the end it was like, "Are you really operating this way now, guys? That's crazy." Like people were asking for 4 or 5 different levels of approval for a blog post, and he
Yeah,
was like, "Let's cut that
for a
and
blog
just
post.
yeah, let's just have one approval. That's fine." That's
Yeah,
why I usually ask for key people to be in those meetings so they can simplify on the spot. Otherwise, the team is always trying to recreate what they already had instead of simplifying.
I do have to say, Bastian, I am incredibly impressed with what people are able to do just by pure muscle and energy and momentum, right? But so it's we're not throwing shade at people who aren't using Asana or a platform like this. I think it's just important to recognize that in many cases they didn't know there was another way, right? And so this is just a matter of taking people who have developed fantastic survival skills in the environment they were in, and we're just saying, hey, guess what, instead of a pocket knife you can use an axe to cut this tree down. Like we're just giving them more powerful tools that allow them to do the great work they're doing, but spend less time worrying about how it gets moved from person to person.
Exactly. That's amazing. That's why our work is so great. Can we talk about product? Can we talk about the 2 apps you're building? Can you tell me again what they do? And yeah, just share with whoever's going to
Sure.
watch what they do.
Yeah, so we have two Sauna add-ons, one called EasyTasker.io and the other one called SuperSauna.io. And I've discovered over and over and over, whenever I say Supersana, for some people, for some reason, people still aren't making the connection that it's super and then SANA, like
Yeah,
Asana.
yeah,
Like I'll watch people, my clients type in Supersana and they do SAUNA. And so I thought, gosh, I got to get my hands on that domain because I think I'm sending a lot of people there. Anyway, so what happened was the reason the way these were born was, I spent 2.5 years consulting on Asana, and just, whenever we hit up against an obstacle of something Asana can do, apologizing and saying, I'm sorry, it can't do that. Let's find workarounds. And I mean, Asana is a fantastic, very robust tool. And like I said, I made the deliberate decision to just focus on Asana instead of other platforms because I felt like it had a best handle on the industry. But you still hit use cases where it just can't do exactly what the client wants.
just to stop you right there, how do you feel? What's your feeling towards the product team when you see those fairly simple use cases not being covered? Because my position is always to be very positive and spend my energy trying to find workarounds. And if you hang out on the forum, you're going to see people on the other part of the scale putting their energy towards hating the product team and saying, this is easy, this is super cheap to do, Monday does it, I'm going to go back to Monday. We've
Yeah.
seen everything on the forum. So how do you feel about this?
Two-part answer, okay, Bastian. So you asked for this, what's coming, okay? So you made that comment to me on the forum
To
a few
you?
years, to
Oh
me
shit.
a
Okay.
couple years ago, because I don't make hateful comments, but I do make very bold comments on the forum to try to help Asana understand this is how this is impacting us, right?
Yep.
And some things are just a convenience. Like, hey, if this were different, it would be this much easier, but we have a workaround and here's how we're doing it. We'd like it to be fixed. But sometimes there was one change that happened probably 2.5 years ago. It was when they took overdue out of the advanced search. Like you would do an advanced search and it would only include stuff that's not due yet. Overdue suddenly wasn't visible. And at that point, I had trained all of my clients to use an overdue and upcoming search.
Yeah.
And so suddenly I got emails from a ton of clients like, our search is broken. None of our overdue tasks are showing. They're not unimportant because they're overdue. They're more important, right? Anyway, so I made this post telling Asana how important it was and how like terrible it was that our workflow is just broken. Here's how it's impacting us. Here's what my clients have said. And Bastian, you're an awesome person. I admire you a lot, but I was really frustrated with what you said. You wrote to me, you said a private message, and you said, I like to spend my time finding workarounds instead of complaining. And
Did I say that? Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Actually, wait, you have to hear the end of the story. And then 7 days later, Asana backtracked and fixed what they broke. And then you wrote me a message and said, sorry, I didn't realize that sharing work impact could actually make a difference. And I was like, we're going to be friends. Because like for you to be willing to come back and like revisit that message told me you were a genuine person. So
I think at the time it wasn't very clear whether or not Asana was listening. And I know now for a fact that they do listen because I talk with them quite often. And I think the example you showed, I was an ass, obviously. I'm really sorry about this because in your example, they broke something. When you break something, it's much more different than not having implemented something that never existed in the first place. I'm trying to be much more cautious now when I answer. And you're going to laugh at this, but at least once a week, I write down an answer and then close the window without posting the answer because it's a bad thing. I'm just
Well, I have to say my perspective on this has also changed now that I'm building product. So it's very common that end users don't understand that one small change here impacts a lot of stuff in the background.
Yeah.
And so, with Supersona and EasyTasker, we're rolling out feature updates every single day. We release a new version about 2 to 3 times a week. But when things need to change and things break, I'm always surprised on when I share something with the developers and we talk through how we're going to accomplish it. And they say, oh, we have to go change something in our back end to make that work. Or we have to change the API to make that work. Or we have to run these, we have to adjust these 3 other features to make that work. So I think it has increased my compassion toward the Asana team for when I think something should be simple and it's not as straightforward as I think. But I will also say, I think they're doing a much better job listening now than, like you were saying, than they were a few years ago, and actually showing that they're listening and trying to test things. So I'm pretty pleased with how they work now. I know some things just take longer to develop, but because some things take longer to develop, that's why you and I have a job, right? We help people fix or build workarounds that work for them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Most people never build anything, so they don't realize what it takes to build something. And in Asana's case, when you add a single button, that goes into the mobile app, the tablet app, the web app. It goes into the documentation, the webinars, the guide. You have to train the AEs, the CSMs, the API. It's just so much work. And in my previous company, we used a point system to rate the complexity of things we were supposed to code. And at one point, we were able to make the connection between a single point and how much that point costs in terms of the entire chain. That was crazy. Like a button would cost thousands of dollars because you had to design the mockups. You had to make a prototype to test. And just so many things along the way. And we also praise Asana for its simplicity and its stability. And that stability comes as a cost, which is being quite slow and try not to release too many things at the same time.
Yeah, because they have clients that are managing large portfolios of projects, and you have to consider, while one little change may be helpful for you, there may be, a 6,000 employee client with 250 projects and 80,000 tasks that relies on the feature working this way, and you want it to work this way, right? So they have to not only consider, it's easier for me right now to build because this user count on my apps is pretty low right now. We're just starting to promote them. But when you talk about managing this for, millions of users across thousands and thousands of large enterprises, it's a lot harder to do. So yeah, like you also said, stability. That's another reason why I chose Asana, because when I started implementing, Asana just had remarkably more stable platform than any of the others I looked at. So
definitely. I think one thing also people don't realize is that if you fix something that has been broken for a long time, you might actually break the workarounds people had for so many years.
Yes.
For example, if you look at subtasks, whatever you do on subtasks right now, whatever new feature you build, that's probably going to break millions of workflows around the world. Yeah. So for example, if the subtask suddenly does belong to the project, that's going to break stuff. That's going to be a mess.
I mean, there's a feature in Supersana right now where, because people want to see subtasks with their associated projects in my tasks, right? Or because they want to be able to have subtasks show up in the workload, things like that. We have a super subtask add to project. We need a better feature name, but it's called super subtask add to project button. So somebody can go to a project and push the button, and it creates a special section at the bottom of the project and multi-homes all the subtasks back into the project so that they show up in my tasks and so that they show up in workload. But when Asana decides to, I still am pretty confident that at some point they're going to make that update that we've all been wanting, of just showing that subtasks belong to a project. At that point, it'll probably cause a lot of confusion. I'll need to make a feature to undo it because the workaround will be unnecessary at that point.
Yeah, maybe you're going to be able to revert your code to let people use the old way,
roll it back
instead of serving the new ones. Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the different features that you have? For example, the one you just mentioned, that's great. That's something we solve using scripts and code. We don't have an actual Chrome extension or whatever you have in your case. Can you explain a bit some of the features you have? Maybe not cover everything, but some of the...
Yeah, sure. Just high level. So we got, like I said, EasyTasker and Supersana. The point of EasyTasker in one sentence is allow users to create and complete work from anywhere. So...
And that's a desktop app? That's a Chrome extension? What's the
currently it's a Chrome extension. We have Alexa and Google support coming out very soon. And then after that, it's going to be desktop and mobile as well. Users might ask themselves, well, Asana has a mobile app. The point of this is it's focused on end users who need to create and complete work, right? Who need to get the tasks done. You wouldn't use our app to structure and build a project. It's focused on getting your daily work done. And so, for example, one of our newest features with EasyTasker, the one I've been most excited about, is our focus list. So you can go into your My Tasks and say, these 3 tasks I'm committing to for today. And you click add to focus list.
Yep.
And then they follow you around on any tab in your browser. You have a little EasyTasker button on the sidebar of your browser that says, what's my focus list? It opens up, shows you your list, when they're due, and you can take action on them from there. And so that makes a big difference. Like, I've built based on client needs, my needs, and what I see on the forum. And so that EasyTasker is focused on creating and completing work. It's also got like contextual buttons. So like if somebody's on LinkedIn and they want to save a LinkedIn post, they click the EasyTasker button and it turns the post and a screenshot and the content into a task. So the whole point is making it easier to have Asana follow you wherever you are, so you don't have to be in Asana to use Asana.
And then what about Supersona?
Yeah, Supersona, that was born from a few things. First of all, you inspired me. You've built a lot of fantastic tools with iDoTools.
But they are fairly small tools that are not remotely close to the kind of stuff you're building.
But they're very, very use case specific. And that's what inspired me, is I thought, when a user needs to do this thing, it's actually a huge headache. And that's where I do tools. I mean, I referred a lot of people to your Custom Fields Explorer, because that's just, it solves a problem that Asana has not solved for years. They're about to solve it. We won't talk more about that, but
Partially.
yeah, partially, yes. But anyway, so I just thought, wow, to build a use case specific tool, um, if I could do that and then build basically a lot of use cases and then group them by role. That's Asana. SuperSana doesn't have that yet, but it's going to have role-based features. So like the team lead can say turn on team lead features, and it's got like features to help you manage a timeline and help you look at team workload and things like that. So the way I decided what to prioritize with SuperSana is we just went to the forum and just looked at posts that were popular that had been ignored for a long time, and that was our roadmap. So we actually have a feature coming out for SuperSana where you'll be able to see an overlay in the forum. Is this available in SuperSana? Is it being developed, or is it
Nice.
being looked at? So the forum is becoming our roadmap with a SuperSana overlay. It's going to be really cool. Anyway, so
And
that's how it got created.
is it a Chrome extension as well?
Yeah, so EasyTasker is on Safari, Edge, Firefox, Chrome, all of them. SuperSana, we're just focusing on Chrome right now, which means it can also work on Edge or any Chrome-based browser. But yeah, it's a Chrome extension right now.
So why? Because I had that a very long time ago. So my tools right now, they are all put together on the same website. I used to create one website for each tool, which with its own custom domain name. Why not build one single super app that does everything? Why do you have that split into two apps? I understand they do different things,
Yeah.
but you do have to market two different things. And isn't it easier to merge them together?
Well, SuperSana has right now it has 30 plus really use case specific tools. It's going to be a beast of a tool, but its function is very different. The purpose of SuperSana is to make the Asana interface easier, faster, more data driven to use. And it's really focused on when you're in Asana, let's make Asana a powerhouse optimized automated tool. EasyTasker is all about access, and actually I plan on growing EasyTasker to be not just for Asana. So EasyTasker is going to be a tool that it's going to be an interface, any task tool, Asana, ClickUp Monday, any small tool, they can all plug in. And basically I want to be able to tell project management tools, you don't need to integrate with Discord and Figma and Slack and, refrigerators. And EasyTasker's job is going to be to make work available anywhere. And then the user just says, connect it with my platform. So we're going to focus on just Asana for at least a year or two. But then eventually I want to roll it out so that any project management tool could plug in and make their users available to use their app from anywhere.
Very cool. When I try to sell a tool or an automation to a client, sometimes they get pretty angry and they feel like that should be part of Asana. I shouldn't have to pay for something like this.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not going to pay. It was hard enough to convince my company to get Asana. And so how do you feel about this? Do you have the same kind of problems when you try to sell your tool?
Yeah, well, so when I try to sell it early and I try to tell people about the benefits early on, I get resistance. But after they've felt pain for weeks or months, and they already know it doesn't matter how painful this is, it's probably going to be months or years before Asana is able to perfect what this looks like. Part of the reason why we're able to move so much faster than Asana with SuperSana is we're just building layers on top of Asana, right? We don't have to build a full platform. We just say our users need this new layer that does this, or this new button that does this. I had the experience you just talked about on the forum the other day, though. So on the forum, a user posted and he was very angry that Asana didn't do something. The specific feature was he wanted Asana to, instead of saying this is due tomorrow, he wanted to see the date of tomorrow.
Yep.
And we just rolled out a feature called show date, not day. And I was like, oh, cool. So I told him about it, and he was really rude in his response. And he was like, this is broken in Asana, and I shouldn't have to think about what date tomorrow is. And I can't believe they're making me go to a solutions provider to make me pay more for another app. And I was like, I don't work for Asana. We just built this because we thought of the same thing that you were dealing with. No problem. If you don't need it, that's fine. But like, we also sell Supersana for a one-time payment. So it's like, well, if it's really painful, pay less than $200, buy it once, and you're set forever with 30 other things, you know? So anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of the hard thing, to selling something in addition to people already paying for
but
as well.
It's a very different experience when they're desperate for a solution and
Definitely.
it's affecting their whole team. So we have a new feature called Optimized Project Timeline, and one of our clients really needed that. The second we talked about it, they're like, "Oh, that's a no-brainer. Absolutely, it's affecting our team hugely. We need that feature."
Does it rearrange the tasks on a timeline to align them on the same rows?
No, so not on the timeline view. It's actual that's something we're trying to figure out how to do. We don't know yet how we're going to do it.
Because the API doesn't allow you to change the order. So I tried,
no.
I looked at this already. You would have to actually click and move stuff around. Yeah,
but it's hard.
Good luck. Yeah.
But no, this is it's specifically focused on like fixing overlaps and removing gaps. Those are two different functions it has. So like the fix overlaps is like when you have task 1 and it's blocking task 2. Task 1 is due December 30th, but task 2 that's supposed to come after it is due November 5th because somebody changed the timeline and didn't make updates. So all this does is it looks at overlaps like that and it puts the tasks in the order the dependencies are showing while maintaining task durations. And then fix gap or reduce gaps looks for, you know, there's a 9-day gap between task 1 and task 2. It just puts them together for them.
Because it moves the second task closer to the first one, so
it compresses the timeline, but while respecting your dependencies.
All right, pretty cool. So, how complex has it been to build a product? Is it way harder than what you thought it would be?
Well, you know, I have to give credit. I have a development team that's. I've worked with developers in Pakistan and the Philippines and India, and they've all done a great job. But I've really, really had a great experience with these developers in India, and we have a pretty good workflow down. It was complicated at the beginning, figuring out kind of what the user experience needs to feel like and look like. But once we got that figured out, now it's just I grab a screenshot in Asana, I throw it into Snagit by Camtasia, and I add in a bunch of like, this is what I want it to look like. And then I just write out the flow of what the user needs to experience. They should click here and then it should present these options. So it takes me like 10, 15 minutes to outline how a feature should function. I pass it to them and they're amazing. Usually within 1 to 2 days, it's live. And so it's like I want to emphasize, I don't think all product development is that easy. It's easy for us because, again, like I said earlier, we're just building layers on top of an already stable platform. So we don't have to worry about the platform. We just have to worry about running some JavaScript and working with the API to say, just move this piece here and just grab this thing that's already working and make this small adjustment, you know? So
it's a magical...
building a full product would be much more complicated. We're just building layers.
Yeah, it's a magical feeling to ask for something and then it works after 1 or 2 days. I am lucky enough to be able to code myself some of the things. And when it finally works, it's just, there's no other feeling.
Well, you're good. You're good at that. Like your tool Templana, whenever I go in there, you're good at function, but you're also good at like, just, I would say 3 things. It accomplishes what it needs to. When I go in and I use your tools, you've already thought about what the user questions are going to be, and you've outlined it, you've put instructions, and then tools that are going to be user facing like Templana, you're very cognizant of design. And so I wish that I started programming when I was 12, and then I only did it for like a year because I just got interested in a ton of different things and I couldn't keep myself focused. So I really admire the development skills that you have and how that's given you the freedom to build whatever you can think of. So
yeah, I think you're giving me too much credit. I actually worked with a lot of developers and engineers, and I'm not that good as a developer. And I'm now working with people in my team from marketing, and every time I show them something, they're like, yeah, it's kind of awkward. It's not that good. We're gonna make it better. So I don't want to do any marketing anymore. I just give that to other people and they make it way better than what I can ever dream of.
I have to tell you something, Bastian.
Go
I did
ahead.
a sneaky little thing that I think I didn't feel bad about because it didn't hurt you. It just benefited people knowing about you. Um, but we're building another app. I'm not ready to talk about yet. I'll tell you privately, but I'm not ready to publish on YouTube. But we're building another app that's all about giving people real time support wherever they need it. And there were some things that I just didn't want to rebuild what you had, so I just embedded I do tools right in the pop-up. It's like if you need to do this, just click here. And I was so happy your page allowed iframing because it allowed me to just put it right in. It was
Yeah,
great.
it's not gonna load that anymore. I'm gonna change this right now.
Stop,
No.
stop.
Yeah, no problem. It's fine. Thanks for telling me though.
Of course.
Um, I want to finish with a last question. What's your
Uh-huh.
favorite productivity trick?
I think my favorite would be one that's fairly invisible. There's no user interface that people usually see, but it's the one that gets the most wows during meetings, and it impacts my day and my brain more than anything else, and that's Text Expander. I love Asana, but the ability to jump like any app anywhere to know that the things that I do hundreds of times a day, like typing my email, you know, to type my email, I do be at, and it
Yeah.
types the rest of my email. And when anybody sees me do that, they're like, wait, hold on. What did you just do? Like, like I have a meeting outline template, and my meeting outline template is MTG outline. And then it goes and says, who's there? What are we talking about? What are the action items? And they're like, oh, whoa, how'd you get that? Where'd you get that? And so that's the one that's the most fun because people ask about it all the time. And it's just, it feels like you can turn any micro thing that you do 100 times a day into a keyboard shortcut. So that's my favorite.
And I do exactly the same thing. I actually completely forgot about this. I worked on a daily basis. I use about 7 different Calendly links, and I haven't written any one of them in months. I just type like 30 FR semicolon. That's my French
Yeah.
30-minute Calendly link. Yeah, that's an amazing trick. It doesn't always work though. Sometimes in Asana it just doesn't. I don't know why. I had never
Huh.
found a way. I'm using the Mac OS keyboard expander, whatever it's named, like the native thing. But that's a good one. I have a good one for you though.
Yeah, go for it. What's yours?
I'm using an app called Paste. So it's a smart clipboard manager. So if you copy, then instead of pasting, you use a special shortcut that's going to
Yes.
show you everything you've copied over the last hours. That's amazing.
Yes. I would probably say that may exceed Text Expander because that's another one that gets wowed. So on Windows, that's built in, but you have to turn it on. It's called Clipboard History.
Okay.
I know on Mac you have to find another app, and that. So I've been wondering what. Actually, I thought of this a few weeks ago. Somebody asked what I recommend on Mac. I didn't have a recommendation. You're on a Mac, right?
Yes.
So you said it's called Paste.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So being able to say like when you need to grab, let's say, 8 different section names from one project and take them to another, copying them all at the same time and then going and pasting them all is like if again it feels like magic. So
Yes. And I have one last one on
yeah,
macOS again. It's called CleanShot X. When I take a screenshot, I have the ability to draw arrows to anonymize a piece of the screen by blurring things, and I can put some circles on it and write some text. And I use this all the time.
that's what I've been jealous of. I saw CleanShot X, and I have not been able to find a screenshot tool on the PC that's as smooth and functional as CleanShot X is. So I'll have to circle
Get a
back with you
Mac.
if I can find one. That's awesome.
Just get
Well,
a
I
Mac.
was on a Mac before, but then I went to a job. My job before I started consulting about 6 or 7 years ago, they needed us to be on Androids and on PCs, and so that was my first time back to a PC in a decade. And I grew so in love with the way I had things set up. I just didn't ever bother re-exploring anything. So
Yeah, fair enough.
anyway, Bastin, awesome. I love hearing
Thank you.
productivity hacks. We should actually do a full session on productivity hacks
Yeah,
sometime.
we
I think
could.
that'd be fun.
We could. Um, It's been 1 hour. Is there anything we haven't covered you want to talk about? Maybe give your website link just in case.
As long as people realize I spend all my time in Asana and I know my website's garbage, but it's teamkickstart.com. And then for EasyTasker and SuperAsana, it's just the names of the apps plus .io. So EasyTasker.io and SuperAsana.io. And EasyTasker is now on the Asana app directory, and SuperAsana will be in a couple weeks. So
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So good to talk with you, Bastian. And for anybody watching, I fully endorse and wholeheartedly give my approval, Bastian. I've learned so much from you, and I feel like right from the beginning, right, when I was planning my road trip, I was going to do a US wide big road trip. I was going to stop in 30 cities and do Asana workshops. It was super exciting, and then COVID hit, and I had to cancel everything. But I feel like right from early on, you were so far ahead. You are always so far ahead of me in terms of what you can do, how you've built your team. But you've always treated me with like this, I don't know, just like this huge respect, and I really appreciate. It's been awesome to interact with you. So thank you.
Except on the forum once, apparently.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to throw shade. I thought it was funny, and it was because
it was.
You're totally right. But that one experience is like, not only like was he willing to come back and acknowledge that, but like it just showed me what kind of person you were. So anyway, thank you.
And I have to acknowledge that you don't post that much on the forum, but when you do, that's when I know something is very important. Like you only come out to say like, this matters. We have to fix this.
I wish I kept that. I've posted like 20 times in the last few days because I started watching for topics that I can solve with SuperAsana, and I'm trying to learn how to do it because still I'm not getting a good reception from people. They don't like that actually, because of this, we're changing how SuperAsana works. I want to be able to say to anybody, you can do that for free in SuperAsana. So in a couple of days, we're rolling out a new version of SuperAsana where any user can get the free account and choose their favorite 2 features. And
Nice.
So any of the pro features, basically that'll allow me to respond to any post and say, use this for free instead of use this and you must upgrade. So anyway, you're awesome, Bastian. Thanks for the conversation. So good to chat with you.
Thank you. See you later.